We open on our boy, Suda, working his part-time job. He offers a sample to a young boy who takes a bite. The kid's eyes light up, instantly begging his mom for more. And just like that, another successful sale is made. As his shift at the market comes to an end, his coworker praises him, noting how sales always spike on his watch. He explains his simple trick. Appeal to the kids to win over the parents. He humbly gives credit to his manager, but admits his one true talent is his incredible gift of gab, a skill he's honed across basically every part-time job in existence. His coworker teases him about his smooth talking, but he just laughs it off. As he clocks out, two girls say their goodbyes to the manager. Suda offers a stiff, almost comically formal bow, but for some reason, he seems incredibly flustered. His manager immediately calls him out on his sudden shyness. He sheepishly admits his gift of gab fails him around girls his age. A curious, almost predatory smile spreads across her face. She tells him she has a special request for someone with his talents. Leaning in close, she asks him a very strange question. Are you interested in being summoned to another world? He stammers that he's heard of the concept, which only seems to delight her. She declares with a brilliant smile that he's going to save another world. Before Suda can even process the words, a glowing magic circle erupts beneath his feet. He demands to know what's happening, but she simply states her intention. As her own appearance begins to shift and change, his simple store manager is replaced by a figure of myth and legend. She introduces herself as a sage, claiming his talents are exactly what this new world needs, and she sends him off with a casual, almost cruel little wink. Suda tries to protest, to beg her to stop, but it's far too late for that. He finds himself in a ruined chamber, surrounded by fallen knights. The sound of crumbling stone echoes through the hall. Among the fallen, one knight stirs, questioning what happened. Suddenly a voice calls out, making Suda jump. He turns to face a colossal warrior in draconic armor. The figure's gaze locks onto him, asking if he is the summoned hero. It all clicks for Suda. The magic circle, the summoning, it's real. But his silence is taken as a yes, and the knight raises his weapon. Apparently the orientation for new heroes is a bit aggressive. Suda throws his hands up in a desperate plea, screaming that he is not the hero they're looking for. The knight's massive weapon stops just short of Suda's face. The colossal warrior seems to consider his desperate denial. He points to the summoning circle and Suda's strange clothes, asking who else could possibly be the summoned one. Suda's mind goes blank with the sheer terror of it all, but he forces himself to think, to find a way to survive. He has to calm down and do the one thing he's good at, talk, and so with a shaky smile he opens with a fashion critique. He claims his clothes are a new style from a distant coastal nation. A lie so bold it even surprises himself. He strikes a pose, fully committing to the bit. The knight listens, wondering if a hero would try to talk to demons, or possess such a weak-looking frame. The knight seems to buy it, musing that the real hero must have fled. He realizes these knights came to kill the summoned one, and he's now trapped in their midst. The knight clutches his helmet, overwhelmed with questions. Suda can only look on in fear. Slowly, the colossal warrior reaches for his helmet, revealing not a man, but a beautiful, horned woman. She introduces herself as Fafnir, a captain in the Demon King's army, and Suda's one critical weakness immediately kicks in. His silver tongue is no match for a pretty face with a giant sword. She informs him that he's being taken to the Demon King's castle. The next thing he knows, he's locked behind bars. His mind struggles to process the sudden turn of events. This isn't how the hero's journey is supposed to begin. A monstrous guard roars at him to be quiet, and he quickly apologizes. He realizes that before saving any world, he has to figure out how to survive. But then he remembers his bag was summoned along with him. He desperately searches his bag for a way to survive. But all he finds are his mundane, everyday possessions. His hope begins to fade. Frustrated that he wasn't given any special powers or legendary weapons. But just as he gives up, something at the bottom of his bag catches his eye. He pulls it out, confused by the strange notebook. But on closer inspection, he realizes it's something else entirely. The cover reads Box of the Abyss. A wave of excitement washes over him as he realizes what this could be. This must be his cheat item, his key to escaping the Demon King's castle. His eyes widen, wondering what this could be. But as he opens it, his hope turns to horror. It's his old sketchbook from elementary school, filled with RPG-inspired doodles. He's overcome with embarrassment, questioning why this cringy relic from his past is here. What possible use could this Box of the Abyss actually have? He turns the page to find a strange inscription with a simple instruction. Chant the name. A wild idea begins to form. Could he summon the items he drew just by saying their names? But the thought of saying those childish names out loud is just too mortifying. He's completely frozen by the sheer overwhelming cringe of it all. So much for a legendary weapon. But with his life on the line, he steals his resolve. He shouts the first name he sees, DX Infinite Water Bottle! And to his utter shock, the item actually materializes. Suda can't believe it, the cringy sketchbook actually works. He realizes summoning drains his energy, but at least he has water. He wonders why his younger self thought a water bottle needed a deluxe version. His moment of reflection is cut short by a voice from the bars. Fafnir has returned, ordering him out of the cell. Suda scrambles to his feet, nervously obeying, only to be led into a room filled with grim-looking devices. Suda sits nervously in what looks like an interrogation room. He glances to the side, a cold sweat running down his face. Fafnir looms over him, stating she has a few questions. But Suda is too busy having a sudden, terrible realization. His captor is actually incredibly cute. His mind races, unable to reconcile the monstrous armor with the girl inside. She leans in, demanding to know what he's staring at, and his brain completely short-circuits. He tries to calm himself, to treat her like any other customer, as she asks for his name. But his silver tongue fails him, and he blurts out a ridiculously long, made-up name instead. He quickly corrects himself, stammering out his real name, Aoi Suta. She decides his full name sounds too much like a hero's, so she'll just call him Suda. She then asks why he was at the summoning site, and he claims he was just passing by. Fafnir's expression goes completely flat. She slams her weapon down, shaking the room in Suta's resolve. She explains that the church is a special area, and that she despises liars. Her eyes burn with suspicion as she demands to know what he's hiding. Suda panics, realizing that a wrong move here will cost him his head. He needs information, anything to build a believable story. He agrees to talk, but only if she explains why they're hunting the hero. Fafnir tells him it's simple. Heroes are dangerous beings who attack demons indiscriminately. She declares with fiery passion that she must defeat the hero to protect her world and her king, a realization that sends a chill down Suda's spine. Fafnir gets right in his face, her patience worn thin, demanding to know who he really is. A bead of sweat rolls down his cheek as his mind races. He clenches his fist, his resolve hardening. He interrupts her, boldly claiming he'll reveal his true identity. With a sudden shift in demeanor, he introduces himself as a collector of rare items, a humble jack-of-all-trades at her service. He then summons an item with another ridiculously cringy name, much to Fafnir's shock. She demands to know what he's done, but Suda just smirks, holding his sketchbook aloft. He presents the sketchbook as the rare item he was seeking. He claims this is the very reason he was at the summoning site. Fafnir listens intently as he asks if she understands now. He mentally adds a convenient detail to his story, that the summoning stone was unfortunately destroyed in the process. She leans in closer, asking if it's some kind of grimoire. Fafnir seems flustered by their sudden proximity, but Suda is the one who's truly losing his composure. He grits his teeth trying to remember his customer service training. He explains the item's supposed power, to see into a person's heart. He claims it can reveal a target's age, personality, and deepest secrets, and it does in the format of a middle school slam book. Suda's confident act shatters as he recognizes the layout. He panics, completely unsure how to explain this. Fafnir peers at the page, unable to read the strange language. She accuses him of lying, of trying to make a fool of her. Her patience gone, she raises her weapon to deliver judgment. The massive axe swings down with terrifying speed, and Suda can only scream as it finds its mark. He feels his neck, realizing his head is gone, replaced by a magical choker. Fafnir declares that from this point on, he can no longer lie to her. Suda learns that if he does, the mark will activate and end him. She leans in, demanding one last time to know who he truly is. Suda's mind races, searching for any possible escape, and with nothing left to lose, he blurts out her deepest insecurity. A stunned silence fills the interrogation room. He cautiously glances up, waiting for her reaction. Fafnir's face explodes in a blush of pure shock and embarrassment. She stammers, asking how he could know her most hidden secret. Suda grins, presenting the sketchbook as proof of his power. He points to the page, revealing her deepest concern, and summons the perfect, if ridiculously named, solution. Fafnir is appalled by the item's absurd name. Suda is hit with a memory of why he drew this in the first place, but he clears his throat, shifting into full customer service mode. His words hit their mark, sending Fafnir into a spiral of self-consciousness. And with a confident smile, he presents his product. He explains its miraculous properties, though she barely understands. He asks if she isn't impressed by such a fine product. As a show of good faith, he even offers it to her for free. Fafnir stares at the ridiculously named bottle, completely flustered. She asks why he would go to such lengths for her, a demon, Suda places a hand on his chest, declaring that he is a merchant. And to him, it doesn't matter if his client is human or demon, because a customer is a customer, plain and simple. She glances at his neck, realizing the magical choker hasn't activated. He presents the item again, asking what she'll do now. Fafnir finally relents, but with one important condition. Before she trusts him, she demands to test the product first. With a confident sparkle in his eye, Suda happily agrees. He eagerly offers her the bottle, telling her to go ahead and try it, but her next words freeze him in place. She drops her armor pieces to the floor with a loud clang, explaining that he will be the one to apply the product for her. Suda's professional demeanor instantly evaporates. Her patience wears thin, and she demands he get on with it. He realizes with dawning horror that he'll have to use his own hands. He forces himself to calm down, drawing on his vast part-time job experience. With a shaky voice, he asks where she'd like him to apply it. Fafnir turns away, her face burning red as she quietly gives her answer. With a deep blush, Fafnir reluctantly presents the target area. Suda's brain promptly short-circuits for the second time today. She warns him that any funny business will be met with a swift end. His hands tremble, realizing none of his jobs prepared him for this. Steeling his nerves, he begins to apply the strange concoction. Fafnir flinches at the sudden cold, and Suda immediately panics. But she tells him to continue, so he nervously gets back to work. She endures the strange sensation, hoping it will actually work. But the close contact is clearly having an effect on the demon captain. Overwhelmed, she finally cries out that she'll believe his story. Suda stares at his hand, telling himself this is purely for survival. Fafnir tries to steel herself to remain completely emotionless. But with a blush, she tells him to do the other side next. A request that completely shatters Suda's already fragile composure. He nervously continues the application, trying not to think about it. But as the product takes hold, Fafnir's eyes widen in shock. Suda feels a sudden change as she leans against him. She murmurs that something feels different, almost soft. A strange sensation washes over the demon captain, and Suda begins to realize the product might be working a little too well. Fafnir asks weakly if the application is over yet. Suda panics, accidentally splashing some of the product as he apologizes, but he's left speechless by her next words. Her massive weapon slips from her grasp, clattering to the floor. She admits through ragged breaths that his story was true after all. Suda looks at the jar, wondering what exactly he just unleashed. The demon captain can only sit there, completely overwhelmed by the strange new feeling. He quickly checks the label, realizing there might be a side effect he forgot about. And with a silent thank you to his younger self, he realizes he's somehow survived. But his reward is simply being thrown back into his cell. Fafnir informs him he'll be confined to the castle for a while. She explains that the items he summons are dangerous to humans. And though she claims not to suspect him, her tale says otherwise. Suda realizes with dawning horror that he's truly trapped here. Fafnir clarifies that she won't kill him needlessly, guaranteeing his safety. A nervous laugh escapes him, overcome with sheer relief. She quickly adds that his very existence is still deeply suspicious. But she can't quite meet his gaze as she says it. She admits, however, that she should thank him for the item. And with a quick farewell, the demon captain walks away. Suda watches from his cell as she walks away with the strange bottle. He collapses to the floor, finally letting the wave of relief wash over him. Meanwhile, Fafnir makes her way down the long castle corridor. Her mind flashes back to the hatred and fear she's seen from humans, but Suda can only laugh, proud of his unwavering sales philosophy. Fafnir clutches the bottle, her thoughts returning to the strange human. She's completely baffled by his actions and his words. The demon captain is left utterly flustered by the whole ordeal. Back in his cell, Suda examines his mysterious sketchbook again. And he discovers a new feature, an affection meter for Fafnir. He stares at the page, completely baffled by this new feature. The book explains that as affection rises, he'll unlock more information. He was summoned and immediately captured. But now he finally has a way to fulfill the sage's mission. His first step is clear. Use this power to gather allies. He'll survive this world with his silver tongue and his overpowered sketchbook. His mind flashes back to his childhood, when he loved drawing imaginary items. A young girl once looked over his shoulder, amazed by his creativity. She was his first crush, the one who praised his silly drawings. But one day, he learned about the profile books popular among the girls. The story so far: Suda was summoned, captured, and won over Fafnir with his sales skills. But his crush's friend points out that Suda probably likes her, and she reacts with pure shock. She calls his drawings childish, declaring she could never like a boy like that. And young Suda overhears every single heartbreaking word. He didn't understand that her harsh words were just a cover. for her true, kinder feelings. And that single moment of rejection became the root of his anxiety. In middle school, the sketchbook became a source of shame, sealed in a box. He shut the door on that painful memory, hoping to forget it. A box he ominously labeled Box of the Abyss. He lies on the cold stone floor, realizing the sketchbook he tried to forget is now the only thing standing between him and certain doom. He wonders what the sage truly intended by sending him here. For now, his goals are simple: find a way home and learn everything he can. And his first step is to raise Fafnir's affection, a thought she happens to overhear. Her sudden appearance nearly sends him through the ceiling. She just stands there, completely unimpressed by his theatrics. This is Fafnir, the demon captain who brought him to this castle. And thanks to his book, he now has access to her entire profile. He realizes that in his world, she'd be the perfect student council president. His mind flashes back to their recent very close encounter. He tries to convince himself it was just professional customer service. But Fafnir is furious, seeing her affection meter has somehow plummeted. The magical choker on Suda's neck begins to tighten ominously. She reminds him of its curse: any lie will be his last. He clutches his throat, realizing he can't bluff his way out of this one. So he tries a different tactic, claiming he wants to build her trust. Internally, he curses the childhood trauma that left him so useless with girls. Fafnir considers his words, noting the choker remained inactive. The cell door swings open and she orders him to come out. Fafnir declares that his fate has been decided, and with a heavy thud, a massive ball and chain appears. Suda struggles under the immense weight, chained like a prisoner. He desperately asks if this is how she shows her trust. But Fafnir is unimpressed, telling him to hurry up before the sun sets. He begs her to remove it, promising he won't run away. The demon captain can only sigh at his pathetic display. She finally steps forward, her patience clearly at its end, and with one hand she lifts the massive weight with ease. She explains that this is nothing, as she trains with 10 times the weight. Suda can only stare, completely in awe of her incredible strength. She tries to act tough, but her wagging tail gives her away completely. She leads him at a brisk pace through the castle corridors. He'd expected a dark, gloomy dungeon, but finds himself in a surprisingly normal, if perpetually overcast, castle. Fafnir explains that the demon realm is shrouded in thick clouds, blocking out most of the sun. She finally stops, announcing that they've arrived at their destination. She presents him with a simple, furnished room, declaring it his new quarters. And then she drops the other shoe. He's now her official familiar. Suda is stunned by the sudden job offer, but she explains it's the Demon King's decision and her responsibility to watch over him. He asks what his duties as a familiar will actually involve. Fafnir explains he'll be assisting her with her work and other tasks. His eyes land on a small collection of books on a nearby shelf. He excitedly grabs one, hoping to finally learn about this world. But as he opens it, he finds the text is completely illegible. He stares at the page, confused by the strange script, until a familiar face stares back at him from an illustration. He asks Fafnir about the woman, who she identifies as the sage, Nostra, a legendary figure known for her immense power and fickle nature. The book also contains a prophecy. When the world faces a crisis, a hero will be summoned to save it. Suda's mind reels, realizing his manager was the sage all along. Fafnir explains that the prophecy marked that very spot, as the place where the hero would be summoned. But as she leans in to look at the book, Suda starts to sweat. He's captivated by her appearance, noticing every small detail. His critical weakness kicks in, leaving him completely flustered. She asks what's wrong, and he nearly jumps out of his skin. But in his panic, his hand lands somewhere it definitely shouldn't. His brain can only compare the sensation to a marshmallow, and the demon captain erupts in a furious, embarrassed blush. Suda immediately hits the floor, bowing and apologizing for his mistake. Fafnir accuses him of doing it on purpose, her face bright red. She then jumps to the conclusion that he's disgusted by her demon heritage. Suda frantically tries to explain that's not it at all, blurting out that he'd never do that to such a cute girl. Fafnir freezes, her hand clenching into a tight fist. She then raises her weapon, screaming at him not to call her that. And once again, Suda finds himself on the wrong end of her axe. But just as she swings, the room is plunged into darkness. Fafnir decides to postpone the execution, stating they need a new lamp first. Suda pulls out his sketchbook, remembering an item that should provide light. Fafnir holds the broken lamp, her affection meter now at a terrifying -40. He steels himself, deciding to treat her not as a girl but as a customer, and with another mortifyingly childish chant, he summons a new item. Fafnir shields her eyes, completely stunned by the sudden brilliant light. A flashback reveals he drew this sun to help his mom dry laundry on rainy days. He proudly presents his creation, explaining it can light up even the darkest corners of the demon realm. Fafnir admits that it's surprisingly bright and warm, much to Suda's relief. She stares up at the light, completely captivated by the strange sensation. The demon captain finds herself feeling a strange sense of comfort from its glow. Her eyes sparkle, completely captivated by the artificial sun. Suda watches her, noticing her tail has started to wag. She stretches out, basking in the warmth with a look of pure bliss. He's stunned by how completely unguarded she's suddenly become. A memory surfaces of his time working at a pet shop, watching the lizards bask under their heat lamps. He cautiously asks if she's feeling all right, breaking her trance. Fafnir suddenly realizes she's been feeling sluggish and depressed lately. It all clicks for Suda, remembering what she said about the lack of sun, and he launches into a full sales pitch, listing all the health benefits of sunlight. Fafnir admits she barely understands his technical jargon, but she can tell it's something incredibly beneficial. She asks if this is some kind of stat-boosting item. Suda nervously checks his choker, hoping his sales pitch doesn't count as a lie. The warmth of the artificial sun begins to take effect on the demon captain. She murmurs about how hot it is, completely unused to the sensation. Suda excitedly explains that her metabolism must be improving. He adds that in some places, people sunbathe with less clothing for maximum effect, a method he claims is the most efficient, though best done in private. And Fafnir, taking his advice a little too literally, begins to undress, much to Suda's horror. Suda panics, asking why she's taking his advice so literally. She explains that she can't afford to show any weakness to her allies. She declares that she must be strong, both in mind and body, and so she demands he bring the light closer for maximum effect. Suda can only obey, holding the ridiculous-looking sun aloft. The warmth seems to overwhelm her almost immediately. She admits through ragged breaths that it feels incredibly good. The warmth spreads through her, a pleasant tingling sensation on her skin. Suda tries to maintain his composure, glad his sales pitch is working. He asks how she's feeling, hoping this awkward situation ends soon. She then asks him to focus the light on the base of her tail, a request that pushes Suda's composure to its absolute limit. The demon captain shivers as the warmth intensifies across her back. She begs him to make it even hotter, completely lost in the sensation. But in his flustered state, he accidentally gets an eyeful. She calls him out, asking why he isn't aiming the light properly. He forces himself to focus, reminding himself this is just customer service. He cranks up the sun's power, which apparently now requires sunglasses. The sudden blast of intense heat hits her with full force. She can only murmur about how incredibly hot it's become. The room quickly becomes a humid sauna, and Suda is feeling the heat. He panics, wondering how to proceed with this very unusual customer request. Fafnir offers a weak apology, much to Suda's surprise. She explains that she's made his bed completely damp from the heat. He frantically reassures her that it's perfectly fine. An idea strikes, and he dives back into his sketchbook for a solution. He quickly finds a drawing for a super absorbent sponge, and with another ridiculous name, he summons the item into his hand. He presents the sponge, offering to help her with the moisture problem. She reluctantly agrees, turning away as he reaches out to help. Suda's face is a mask of pure, unadulterated panic. With a shaky voice, he apologizes for the intrusion. He swallows hard, trying to steady his trembling hands. The strange sponge makes contact with her back, and Fafnir jumps, surprised by the sudden touch. But in an instant, the moisture begins to vanish. The sponge works with impossible speed, leaving her skin and hair completely dry and refreshed. She turns around, completely amazed by the result. She happily declares that she feels better than ever. A faint blush spreads across her face as she takes in the new sensation. But she turns to find Suda has shriveled into a desiccated husk. He collapses to the floor, completely drained of all moisture. The sponge, it seems, absorbs water from everything it touches, including its wielder. A flashback reveals he invented this item to hide a childhood bedwetting problem. Slowly, his body begins to return to normal. Fafnir, now fully dressed, feels completely reborn and full of energy. Suda rehydrates with his infinite water bottle, amazed by her demonic recovery speed. And a quick check of his sketchbook reveals her affection has skyrocketed. She can only look away, flustered that a human managed to solve her problem so easily. A sudden thought seems to strike the demon captain. She declares that she's finally found the perfect job for her new familiar. And with a wild look in her eyes, she orders him to open a shop right here in the castle. She insists his unique abilities are perfectly suited to help the demon race. Suda imagines his potential clientele, a terrifying lineup of monstrous figures. He clutches his sketchbook, a wave of doubt washing over him. But he sees an opportunity, offering a condition of his own. He asks if she would be willing to introduce his products to her comrades. She questions why she would ever do that, but he insists that's precisely why he needs her. He explains with a charming smile that she was his very first demon customer. Fafnir is taken aback by his bold request. He quickly adds that he won't force her, of course. She bites her lip, weighing his words carefully. She can't make any promises, but she'll consider it if the mood strikes her. Suda bows deeply, thanking her for even considering it. With that settled, she announces she's heading next door. She asks if she forgot to mention their new living arrangement. A diagram reveals his room is just a closet attached to hers. She warns him not to try anything, as she'll hear every sound. Suda sits in his new room, realizing his plan to raise her affection has resulted in them being much closer than he ever expected. Meanwhile, Fafnir walks away with her new son, a small smile on her face. But her moment of peace is interrupted by a sly-looking newcomer. Fafnir is suddenly ambushed from behind, her eyes wide with shock. The wolf girl gets a little too friendly, much to Fafnir's embarrassment. Fafnir immediately delivers a swift chop to the head, telling her to stop. The girl, Ugaru, just whines that she couldn't help herself. Fafnir fumes, telling her this happens way too often. But Ugaru just brushes it off, her attention suddenly drawn elsewhere. Her interest piqued, Ugaru asks if she can play with the human too. And so, Suda begins the exciting preparations for his grand opening. He carefully lays out his display on the cold stone floor. With his first product in place, his humble shop is finally complete. He proudly presents his wares, officially open for business. Fafnir arrives to inspect his work, looking thoroughly unimpressed. Suda greets her warmly, but she's more focused on his strange new items. He begins his pitch with a dazzling gem he calls diamondish. But the demon captain is not so easily swayed, calling it just a rock. So he moves on to his next item, a bunch of very creepy-looking bananas. She accuses him of having a lecherous gaze, which he doesn't even bother to deny. Fafnir explodes in anger, demanding to know what use any of this junk is. Suda collapses in defeat, realizing his one-star items are basically garbage. But a closer look at his sketchbook reveals a new detail. A rarity system. He's currently a level 1 merchant, stuck summoning low-tier items until he can sell more. He wonders how he's supposed to sell anything when his entire inventory is worthless. But Fafnir's expression suddenly changes as an idea begins to form. Just then, Ugaru pops up from behind, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Fafnir is completely caught off guard by her friend's sudden appearance, and Suda can only watch, utterly confused by the interruption. Fafnir stands there, her patience clearly wearing thin. Suddenly, a pair of fluffy ears twitches into the frame, and Ugaru tackles Suda, pinning him to the floor with a playful grin. Fafnir immediately erupts, scolding her friend for her usual lack of boundaries. Suda is left gasping for air as his new acquaintance apologizes without a hint of remorse. She introduces herself as Ugaru, a soldier in the Demon King's army. Fafnir demands to know why she's here, and Ugaru says she heard about the new shop. With a brilliant smile, she declares that she's come to play. Suda quickly consults his sketchbook, hoping to understand this new customer. And the book reveals her profile, a personality completely opposite to Fafnir's. Suda observes the two, realizing that demon girls are surprisingly cute. Ugaru suddenly gets right in his face and his composure immediately shatters. She asks if he'll play with her, a request he is clearly not prepared for. He tries to explain his role as a merchant, but Ugaru just wants to know why Fafnir gets to have all the fun. She then asks what it would take to get him to play along with her. Fafnir seems to have an idea, much to Suda's visible concern. She leads them to a massive training ground within the castle walls. Fafnir scolds her friend for being unprofessional, but Ugaru proposes a simple contest. She suggests a game of tag. If he can survive for 10 minutes and tag her back, she'll buy his entire stock, and Suda asks if he can use his items. Ugaru happily agrees, but Fafnir is furious they're making deals without her. She asks if Ugaru is serious, warning her not to go easy on the human. Ugaru crouches low, reminding Suda that a true merchant never misses a sale. Her words seem to strike a chord, reigniting his professional spirit. Fafnir can only watch, looking less than thrilled about the whole ordeal. Suda explains that he wanted to get to know the demons better anyway, a statement that seems to catch the demon captain completely off guard. He flashes a confident smile, fully embracing his role as a merchant. Fafnir warns him to be careful, as Ugaru doesn't know how to hold back. She then takes her place as referee, starting the hourglass to begin the match. With a cheerful wave, Ugaru signals the start of the game, and in the blink of an eye she vanishes, reappearing behind Suda before he can even react. Fafnir screams his name, a look of pure terror on her face. Suda whips around, his own eyes wide with shock. The wolf girl lunges, her claws extended with a predatory grin, but he dives out of the way just in time, her attack shattering the stone where he stood. Ugaru lands gracefully, impressed that a human could move so fast. Suda offers a nervous smile, confirming her suspicion. He'd summoned a pair of express shoes, an item designed to surpass human limits. An item born from a child's imagination, promising impossible speed. A flashback reveals he drew them out of pure jealousy for the fast kids in his class. He recalls her profile, realizing her competitive spirit is his best sales angle. This isn't just a game of tag, it's the ultimate product demonstration. He begins his pitch mid-sprint, boasting that he's faster than anyone. Ugaru takes this as a personal challenge, and he quickly tries to backtrack. But it's too late. Her competitive instincts have already kicked in. Suda's face fills with immediate regret. She lunges forward with incredible speed, proving no one outruns her. The wolf girl playfully scolds him for the sudden burst of speed, clearly enjoying the chase. Suda realizes with a jolt of fear that he almost got caught. Ugaru declares she's getting serious, forcing Suda to push his shoes even harder. But he pushes them too far, losing his footing completely. He rockets past a stunned Ugaru, crashing headfirst into something unexpectedly soft. That something being Fafnir, who was just trying to watch the match. The demon captain's face erupts in a furious blush. Suda scrambles to get up, his own mind completely short-circuiting. He tries to push himself away, the situation growing more awkward by the second. He can only offer a frantic apology for the very accidental contact. Ugaru stands over him, her eyes shadowed with a sudden intensity. But it's Fafnir who erupts, screaming that he belongs to her and her alone. Suda uses the chaos to scramble away, trying to put some distance between them. But his leg suddenly buckles beneath him. He looks down in horror, realizing his shoes have already reached their limit. The cheaply made item begins to crumble, unable to handle the recoil. A voice from behind asks what he's doing, her tone laced with predatory amusement. And with a final pounce, Ugaru pins him to the ground. She leans in close, a triumphant smile on her face as she declares checkmate. Suda can only stare in disbelief, his brilliant sales pitch ending in total failure. But as the last grains of sand fall, time is officially up. Suda argues desperately from the ground, insisting that he still managed to tag her back. He even tries a charming wink, hoping to seal the deal. But Ugaru just smirks, questioning if that's really how it works. He points out the rules of their game, but she seems to think that's no fun. With a sly grin, she offers to teach him what playing truly means. Her idea of fun, however, seems to involve a lot more claws and teeth. A look of pure terror washes over Suda's face. Ugaru decides a simple chase just isn't exciting enough for her. She leans in, a predatory glint in her eye, promising to make things much more exciting. Suda tries to distract her with a nervous sales pitch, anything to talk his way out of this. But she sees right through his desperate attempt to escape. Her sharp nail taps against his chest, claiming she knows his every thought. She can see exactly where he wants to run and what he wants to do, and she has no intention of falling for any of his little tricks. With time still on the clock, she gives him a choice: surrender or play for real. But before she can make a move, she's suddenly yanked away. Fafnir sighs, muttering that her friend's bad habits are showing again. Ugaru just licks her lips, admitting that once she gets excited, she can't be stopped. Suda lies on the ground, his mind racing for a way out. He's completely flustered, unsure how to handle the situation. His shoes are broken, and he only has enough energy for one more summon. But all he has left are his completely useless one-star items. Ugaru leans in closer, eager to continue their little game. Fafnir fumes from the sidelines, scolding her friend for taking things too far. But Suda can barely think, completely overwhelmed by the wolf girl's purring. His mind can only compare her to a cat toying with its prey. A comparison Ugaru seems to fully embrace with a playful growl. With no other choice, Suda clenches his fist, preparing for one last desperate move. Ugaru playfully asks if he's ready to give up, but with a sudden burst of confidence. He declares that the show isn't over yet, and summons the creepy-looking bananas right in her face. She can only stare, wondering what they are, but her curiosity gets the better of her and she takes a bite. A smug, satisfied look spreads across Suda's face. Ugaru bursts out laughing, completely distracted by the strange item. He uses the opening to summon his final one-star item. The dazzling light of the fake diamond fills her vision. He pushes his shoes to their absolute limit, only to be slammed to the ground once again. Ugaru rubs her eyes, annoyed by his cheap tricks. But Suda grins, reminding her he only needed to tag her back. Fafnir can only stare in complete disbelief, and Ugaru is left utterly speechless. Suda recalls his time at the cat cafe, realizing if she's a feline, then she must have the same weakness. The wolf girl's entire body seizes up, completely overwhelmed. He unleashes a secret technique taught to him by his old manager, a technique that targets the sensitive nerves at the base of the tail. He begins with a series of gentle pats, and Ugaru is immediately thrown off by the strange sensation. He then switches to a slow, deliberate stroke. The wolf girl's strength begins to drain away completely. Her body reacts against her will, and she begs him to stop. But she's completely overwhelmed, unable to resist. Suda only increases the intensity of the technique, and with a final twitch, the fearsome warrior collapses, all thanks to a secret art taught to him by his old cat cafe manager. Fafnir snaps, delivering a sharp chop to Suda's head. She shakes him back to reality, reminding him the match is long over. She scolds him for getting way too carried away with his customer service. He can only apologize, dangling helplessly in her grip. He explains he was just lost in the moment, trying to make a sale. She drops him to the ground, his magical shoes now a pile of dust. Fafnir turns away, flustered, telling him not to make her worry like that. But his troubles aren't over, as Ugaru happily latches onto him. She admits she's never had this much fun before, and with a sly smile, she asks Suda to play with her again. Suda is left completely flustered by the request, as Fafnir's rage echoes across the training grounds. But from the shadows, a hooded figure watches the scene unfold. A small, almost imperceptible smile plays on her lips. She observes the chaos from a safe distance. Our boy is caught between a scolding captain and a very clingy wolf girl. Later that night, a shadow creeps into Suda's room as he sleeps, but a sudden chill wakes him from his slumber. The hooded figure from before looms over his bed with a sinister smile, and a cold sweat breaks out across Suda's face. A sudden scream jolts Fafnir from her sleep. She bursts out of her room, demanding to know what's happening. She finds Suda begging for his life from the hooded figure who is trying to calm him down. The mysterious visitor seems completely flustered by the over-the-top reaction. Fafnir can only stare, as a crowd of curious demons gathers behind her. She leans through the doorway, demanding to know what all the commotion is about. Later, she sits at her desk, demanding a full explanation from everyone. Suda explains that he just woke up to find the stranger standing over him. The figure introduces themselves as Batty, a member of the transport unit under Fafnir's command. Batty offers a formal, if slightly shy, greeting to the human. Suda's eyes light up, recognizing Batty's teleportation as a classic cheat skill. Fafnir demands to know why Batty was sneaking into Suda's room in the first place. Batty stammers, trying to explain their reason for being there. Fafnir decides Suda is responsible for this mess, and he can only agree. Batty shyly admits they want to become a full-fledged succubus. Suda is confused, as Batty doesn't match his idea of the seductive demon. Batty reveals a crest on their stomach, explaining it must glow for them to be recognized. Suda asks what the condition is, and Batty explains it lights up when desire is fulfilled. Batty struggles to explain the specific act required, blurting out that it involves a kiss, much to Suda's shock. Suda panics, stammering that he understands the general job description of a succubus. Batty explains they once saw another succubus's crest light up after a kiss, but now that it's their turn, they feel completely lost and unqualified. Suda can only ask why they chose him, a human, for this task. Batty shyly admits that they were watching him earlier. Specifically, they witnessed his very hands-on approach with Fafnir and Ugaru. Batty looks at him with stars in their eyes, convinced he's a master of seduction. An assumption Suda quickly and frantically tries to correct. He consults his sketchbook, finding a new profile page for the aspiring succubus. As Fafnir tries to help, Suda realizes he has another potential customer on his hands. He flips through his sketchbook, realizing his childish items are useless for this. His mind races, admitting he has absolutely zero experience in this department. Fafnir asks if he has any items that could possibly help the situation. She then formally requests that Suda lend his power to her subordinate. She explains that Batty has been struggling with their confidence for a while, and has been too depressed to even smile lately. Suda understands the true request. Fafnir wants him to help her soldier find their smile again. She looks at him with pleading eyes, waiting for his answer. And with a brilliant smile, Suda accepts, declaring he'll gladly assist as her familiar. Later, over tea, he reflects on how deeply the demon captain cares for her people. Fafnir asks why Batty has struggled with this for so long. Batty explains they get overwhelmed by the sheer number of variables. Suda agrees that overthinking can make your mind go blank. So Batty turns to Fafnir, asking how she would handle the situation. They plead for a demonstration, certain it would give them the confidence they need. And all eyes immediately turn to the only other person in the room. Suda's brain short-circuits as he screams that it's impossible. Fafnir grabs him, demanding to know if he has a problem with her. Batty immediately apologizes, realizing they've made things very awkward. Fafnir quickly tries to console them, telling them not to get depressed. Fafnir grabs him, demanding he stop complaining, but Suda insists it's impossible. He blurts out that his heart can barely handle being near her, let alone anything more. A confession that leaves the demon captain completely speechless. She lets him go, a deep blush spreading across her face. They both agree this is just for show, a demonstration and nothing more. But Batty's hopeful gaze is more than enough to seal their fate. Fafnir steals her nerves, placing her hands on his shoulders. The two lean in, the tension in the room becoming unbearable. Batty watches with bated breath, ready to learn from the masters. And for a brief, fleeting moment, their lips finally meet. But the moment is shattered as Fafnir shoves him away, screaming that it's impossible. She admits through a blush that she's never done this with anyone before. An awkward silence fills the room as Fafnir offers a quiet apology. She quickly deflects, demanding that Suda demonstrate for Batty instead. Suda's mind races, realizing he needs to overcome his own crippling shyness. A brilliant, if slightly insane, idea begins to form. He summons a new item, a spray designed to eliminate embarrassment. He launches into a sales pitch, asking if they've ever been held back by fear. His words hit their mark, striking a deep chord with the aspiring succubus. He explains its special ingredient will grant the user unwavering confidence. Both Fafnir and Batty are completely captivated by his persuasive words. But Fafnir remains skeptical, asking if she can test the product first. Suda quickly consults his sketchbook for the proper usage instructions, but Fafnir impatiently grabs the bottle and applies way too much. He realizes with dawning horror that the instructions warned against this very thing. Batty nervously asks if the demon captain is feeling all right. Fafnir suddenly reaches out, grabbing Suda's hand with a newfound intensity. A fiery aura of confidence erupts around her as she declares she feels incredible. She lunges forward, demanding they finish their demonstration before the effect wears off. Suda can only recoil in terror as the newly emboldened captain closes in. She tells him to steel his resolve, asking if he's ready, or if he has a problem with her being the one to teach him. Suda is left completely speechless by her sudden boldness. She grabs his shirt, pulling him closer with unwavering determination. The demon captain leans in, her heart pounding in her chest. Her face is a mask of pure, unadulterated focus. Batty can only watch, completely engrossed in the demonstration. Suda squeezes his eyes shut, bracing for the inevitable. And for a brief, fleeting moment, their lips finally meet. The aftermath leaves Fafnir completely flustered, her confidence instantly shattered. Fafnir pulls back, her face a mask of pure embarrassment. But Suda is the one to object, stating that this is going too far. He insists that something so important should be saved for someone she truly cares about. His words hit her with the force of a physical blow. He tries to downplay the moment, claiming a first kiss is too special to be wasted on him. The demon captain can only look away, completely overwhelmed. She finally explodes, screaming at him to stop making her heart pound like that. Meanwhile, Batty watches the entire exchange with stars in their eyes. They're amazed to see their usually stoic captain acting so flustered and vulnerable. And they realize that with this item, they might finally find their own confidence. But as Suda reels from the chaos, he hears a strange sound. He turns to see Batty dousing themselves in the confidence spray. He panics, asking why they're bathing in the stuff. Batty strikes a pose, leaving Suda to wonder what he's unleashed. But their confident demeanor suddenly falters, catching everyone off guard, and the aspiring succubus bursts into a flood of tears. A reaction that leaves both Suda and Fafnir completely speechless. Fafnir rushes to their side, asking what could possibly be wrong. But Batty can only sob, unable to stop the sudden emotional outburst. Fafnir looks to Suda for answers, but he's just as baffled as she is. Through tears, Batty confesses they've tried so hard for so long. Fafnir realizes these are the shameful feelings Batty has been hiding. A memory surfaces of Batty being mocked by other succubi. And no matter how hard they trained, their status never changed. They cry out that they're weak, a failure as a demon. But Suda suddenly cuts through their despair with a sharp rebuke. Fafnir agrees, stating that Batty is indeed weak, and the aspiring succubus can only look away in shame. But then she grabs them, declaring that they are also incredibly strong. She knows the blood and tears it took to master their unique magic. She declares that Batty is a strong demon who always tries their best. Acknowledging their efforts and their worth, Fafnir offers a rare, gentle smile. She reaches out to comfort them, telling them how hard they've worked. Suddenly, Batty begins to tremble. Before collapsing onto the couch, much to everyone's shock, Fafnir calls out their name, her voice filled with concern. But as they look up, the crest on their stomach begins to glow brightly. Suda's book reveals the truth. The desire wasn't a kiss, but simply to be acknowledged. Overcome with emotion, Batty embraces their captain. Suda watches on, a quiet smile on his face. Now fully composed, Batty offers them a heartfelt thank you. They praise Suda for his incredible items, and he humbly accepts. He insists he's just a merchant, a statement that seems to fluster the young demon. Batty then leans in close, much to Suda's confusion, and plants a quick, grateful kiss on his cheek. With a cheerful wave, the newly confident succubus says goodnight, leaving Suda completely flustered by the sudden show of affection. Fafnir praises him for his good work, but he can only stammer about his own shortcomings. He humbly insists that without his items, he'd be completely useless. But Fafnir seems to disagree with his assessment. She admits that at first she thought his power came from his sketchbook, but now she realizes it's his own strength that's truly impressive. A compliment that leaves Suda completely speechless. She quickly blames the confidence spray for her sudden outburst, and orders him back to his room before she says anything else. His heart pounds as he reaches for the door, but a voice stops him. Fafnir turns back, offering a quiet goodnight. He stammers out a reply before quickly shutting the door behind him. Back in his room, Suda checks his sketchbook, and finds his merchant level has suddenly increased. Elsewhere, in a dark and ominous throne room, a subordinate reports to her king about the strange human and his even stranger items. The ruler of this realm takes a sip from her goblet, a smirk playing on her lips. She declares that she was just looking for a bit of entertainment, and with a predatory smile, she orders her subordinate to bring the human to her. Meanwhile, Suda is still celebrating his sudden level up. His merchant skill has officially reached level 2. The book explains it's because a customer's affection has passed a certain point, leaving him to wonder who it could be. He realizes the affection meter was the true key to his progress. He thought it was just for gathering allies, not leveling up his skills. The book reveals all 3 of his new acquaintances started at 0, but are now well above 40%. A warm, fuzzy feeling spreads through him at the thought. With renewed vigor, he decides to keep this momentum going. But his moment of triumph is cut short by a strange smell. He takes a quick whiff of his shirt and immediately recoils. After all that running and sweating, he desperately needs a bath. Just then, Fafnir appears, asking if that's what he wants. He nervously explains his predicament, while she calmly considers his request. With a sigh, Fafnir agrees to his request and tells him to follow. She leads him out of the castle to a secluded, forested area. Suda immediately notices a unique, earthy scent in the air, and sees warm steam rising from a natural pool of water. He realizes with pure delight that she's brought him to a hot spring, but their quiet moment is interrupted by a familiar, cheerful voice. Ugaru wastes no time, inviting Suda to join her for a dip, an invitation that leaves our boy completely and utterly flustered. Fafnir quickly intervenes, trying to rein in her friend's usual lack of boundaries. But Ugaru simply asks why Fafnir isn't joining them, since Suda is already there. Fafnir is left completely flustered by the suggestion. Ugaru immediately calls her out, teasing her about Suda. Fafnir frantically denies it, but Ugaru just keeps pushing. The demon captain can only grit her teeth in pure embarrassment. Suda wonders if this is just a normal part of demon culture. But he's sure the ever-serious Fafnir will handle the situation, a hope that is immediately shattered as they both appear ready for a swim. Ugaru cheerfully tells him to hurry up and join them, but a hand suddenly grabs his shoulder from behind, and Fafnir declares that it's unfair if he's the only one left out. Ugaru offers some very personal assistance, which Suda frantically rejects, and the next thing he knows, he's been dragged into the hot spring. Ugaru sighs in pure bliss, while Fafnir quietly soaks beside her. Suda's mind reels, grateful that the cloudy water hides his embarrassment. He tries to make himself as small as possible, hoping to disappear. Ugaru, however, is completely lost in the relaxing warmth. Fafnir struggles to find a safe place to rest her eyes. Ugaru playfully advises him to keep his gaze lowered. She then asks if he has any items to make the experience more exciting. Complaining that things are a bit dull with just her and Fafnir, Ugaru leans in with a playful grin, offering to make things much more interesting for him. But Suda remembers his recent level up, searching his book for a 2-star item. He finds the perfect solution, much to the confusion of the 2 demon girls. And with another mortifyingly childish name, he summons a duck-shaped soap dispenser. He launches into a sales pitch, promising a relaxing experience that will wash away all their stress. Ugaru, completely sold, playfully splashes the bubbles onto a very surprised Fafnir. Suda can only cover his face, completely overwhelmed by the awkward situation. The demon captain is flustered by the strange sensation as the bubbles spread. He knows he shouldn't look, but he can't bring himself to turn away. And Fafnir seems to notice his unwavering, terrified gaze. Ugaru just laughs, telling her friend to stop being so serious. but Fafnir erupts in a flustered rage, demanding she cut it out. Suda suddenly recalls a critical detail from the item's description. The bubbles revert one's mind to a state of childhood. A realization that dawns on Fafnir as the strange effect takes hold. She begins to cry, and Suda frantically tries to calm her down, but a memory of another part-time job gives him a brilliant idea. He carefully cups the strange soap in his hands and presents a perfect, shimmering bubble to the distraught demon captain. Fafnir stares in awe, completely captivated by the simple trick. Her anger is replaced with pure wonder as she asks him to teach her. He realizes this childish item is far more troublesome than he ever expected, and it's not just Fafnir. Ugaru is also affected, demanding to play with him. Fafnir immediately shifts into big sister mode, scolding Ugaru for crying. Suda tries to intervene as they get carried away with the bubble dispenser, leaving both fearsome warriors on the verge of a full-blown tantrum. So he leans into the chaos, declaring that he's not afraid of any bubbles. A silly display that immediately captivates his two new friends. And just like that, the hot spring is filled with laughter instead of tears. He gets a little too into his role, almost forgetting the danger he's in, forcing himself to remember that he's the only adult left in the room. Ugaru clings to him, asking if it's her turn to play now, but Fafnir quickly grabs his other arm, staking her claim. She glares at her friend, refusing to let go of the human. The demon captain insists that Ugaru has to wait her turn, but the wolf girl argues that Fafnir always gets to have all the fun. Suda is caught in the middle, completely overwhelmed by the sudden rivalry. He's never been in a situation quite like this before, and he knows he has to stop it but has no idea how. He grits his teeth, realizing he can't let this go on. As both girls call his name, pulling him in opposite directions, they both turn to him, demanding he choose who gets to play first. Suda's mind goes blank, realizing he's in way over his head. He's caught between them, his head spinning from the heat and the chaos. But then he notices a sudden, unnerving silence. He turns to see Fafnir slowly sinking beneath the surface, and Ugaru follows suit, both of them completely passed out. Suda screams their names, his mind racing in pure panic. The two fearsome warriors are now completely unconscious in the water. He's left alone, begging for someone to help him. The scene shifts to a map, revealing a world divided between humans and demons. The next morning, Fafnir is hard at work in her office with her daily training. She pushes through, finishing her 1,000th rep. A sigh of relief escapes her, feeling completely refreshed. With her morning workout complete, she feels better than ever. She notes how much lighter and stronger she feels lately, all thanks to the artificial sun Suda summoned for her. She basks in its warmth, admitting it feels too good to even move. But her moment of peace is shattered by a sudden intrusion. One of her soldiers bursts in, apologizing for the interruption. He brings urgent news. Humans are hunting demons in the East Forest, and Fafnir immediately prepares to move out. Deep within the East Forest, a hunt is underway. A small, furry demon struggles against its bonds. Two human poachers celebrate their successful capture. One of them wonders what they should do with their prize. But a figure suddenly drops from the canopy above. The men cry out in terror, realizing who they're facing. Fafnir stands before them, her eyes filled with cold fury. They try to run, but the demon captain is far too fast. She swings her massive weapon with devastating force, sending the poachers flying with a single powerful blow. Her soldier reports that the captured demon is safe. Fafnir orders the small creature to be freed from its cage. She notes with concern that human incursions are on the rise. A map reveals just how many have trespassed into their lands. She wonders why they would risk so much for so little. But her train of thought is cut short by a sudden noise. More poachers emerge from the trees, realizing they've been discovered. Fafnir knows she can't let them escape deeper into the forest. But her soldiers are suddenly ambushed from the sides. A familiar voice sighs that the fun is already over. It's Ugaru, arriving just in the nick of time. Fafnir sighs in relief, grateful for the backup. The wolf girl boasts about her new express shoes, a gift from Suda. She happily cuddles the small creature they just rescued. The captured poachers can only tremble in fear. Fafnir and Ugaru stand over them, an intimidating duo. One of the men begs for his life, claiming he has a family. Fafnir's expression remains cold and unreadable, but Ugaru wonders aloud what the punishment for trespassing should be. Her smile turns predatory as she declares they have no one to blame but themselves. But Fafnir stops her friend, deciding to let them go this one time. Ugaru agrees, noting the Demon King dislikes needless killing. A wave of relief washes over the captured men, until Fafnir warns them that if they return, it will be their last time. She asks if they understand, and they can only stammer in agreement. With the matter settled, she calls for one of her subordinates, and Batty, the aspiring succubus, nervously steps forward. Fafnir orders them to teleport the humans out of the forest. Batty eagerly activates their magic, a glowing circle erupting beneath the poachers. The men cry out in terror, completely baffled by the sudden turn of events. Fafnir gives them one last chilling warning. The poachers find themselves safely outside the forest, teleported a considerable distance away. Batty proudly confirms the successful long-range transport. Fafnir praises them, impressed by their improved skill. Batty explains their confidence has boosted their magic. The captain teases them, ruffling their hair like a proud mentor, a gesture that leaves the young succubus completely flustered. Just then, a very hungry Ugaru makes her presence known. With the mission complete, Fafnir orders everyone to head back. Back in her office, Fafnir is buried in paperwork. She sighs, overwhelmed by the mountain of chores still ahead. Finally finishing, she stretches out, ready for a well-deserved break. But a sudden scent makes her pause, a look of concern on her face. She realizes in her rush, she forgot a crucial part of her morning routine. Her eyes land on the strange bottle Suda gave her. She begins to carefully apply the miraculous cream. A memory surfaces of their first very awkward encounter. She recalls the way he applied it for her a little too vividly, and a deep blush spreads across her face as she admits it feels nice. She recalls how Suda's hands were so much larger than her own. She remembers the warmth of his touch, and the gentle way he handled the application. A strange heat had spread through her, a feeling she had never experienced before. The memory sends a shiver down her spine. She clenches her hands, reliving the sensation. The demon captain is left completely overwhelmed by the recollection. She admits that at first, she thought he was just some untrustworthy human. But now she sees him not as a threat, but as the terrified boy from the summoning. A boy who, against all odds, has tried his best to help her and her comrades. She touches her neck, a strange warmth spreading through her. He's so close now, and she wonders if it's okay to finally reach out. But a deep blush spreads across her face as she admits she's not ready. Overwhelmed by these new feelings, she clutches herself tightly. The demon captain collapses onto her bed, completely flustered and confused. But her moment of crisis is interrupted by a sudden knock at the door. She scrambles to get dressed, wondering who could possibly be visiting now. She cracks open the door, only to find Ugaru standing on the other side. Suda nervously answers, peeking out from his room. He finds Fafnir with a new face, the Demon King's secretary, Mepu. She announces that the Demon King has summoned them both. A wave of pure terror washes over Suda's face. Mepu warns them to be on their best behavior. Suda's mind races, realizing the moment of truth has finally come. He's escorted through the castle, about to meet the ruler of this realm. They arrive before a set of massive ornate doors. Fafnir tells him this is it and he can only swallow his fear. With a heavy groan, the doors to the throne room swing open, and there, upon an ornate throne, sits the ruler of this realm. The Demon King looks down, an air of weariness about her. Her eyes are heavy, her expression unreadable. Suda can feel the tension in the air, a suffocating weight. He's overwhelmed by the sheer pressure of her presence alone. She finally looks up, her gaze locking onto the human before her. But her grand entrance is cut short as she suddenly grabs a bucket. Suda can only stare in disbelief as the Demon King gets violently ill. Mepu scolds her for drinking too much, revealing a 2-day hangover. And her solution is apparently the hair of the dog that bit her. Suda can only stare, completely dumbfounded by the scene. Fafnir quickly kneels, trying to salvage some dignity from the situation. She formally introduces Suda, the human merchant they captured. The Demon King finally introduces herself as Nebulae Nightfall. Suda, ever the opportunist, discreetly consults his sketchbook and finds her profile is just a long, loving ode to alcohol. He can't believe this is the fearsome ruler he was so worried about. The Demon King apologizes for her unseemly display, and Suda just smiles nervously. Now composed, she explains that she's heard a great deal about him, about his rare items and the help he's given her subordinates, all while holding him on her lap. She tells him to dispense with the formalities and show her his rare items. The Demon King leans in, her curiosity piqued, and Suda nervously agrees. He realizes this is the true reason for his summons and opens his sketchbook. With a familiar cringy chant, he calls forth his wares. The Demon King is impressed by the strange collection of one-star items. She reaches for the creepy bananas, but Suda frantically warns her not to eat them. But it's too late, as she finds they pair surprisingly well with her drink. Fafnir scolds him for letting her eat the cursed fruit, but he insists the effect is temporary. The Demon King simply snaps her fingers, silencing the commotion. And with a satisfied smile, she seems to have enjoyed the strange experience. Suda realizes resisting the Demon King's charm is easier said than done.
She muses on his strange power, calling him a vessel worthy of her attention.
She admits that in all her years, she's never seen items quite like his. But Suda can't shake the feeling that something is deeply wrong here. The Demon King notes how strange it is for a human with his abilities to just appear, and with a predatory smile, she asks where he truly came from. A question that sends a jolt of pure terror through Suda. He realizes this was never a friendly meeting. It was an interrogation from the start, and the magical choker around his neck begins to tighten ominously. He remembers Fafnir's curse, realizing he can't lie his way out of this one. He remembers Fafnir's words, "The demons hunt the summoned hero," and the magical choker tightens, a deadly reminder of his predicament. The Demon King notes his silence, asking if he has something to hide. Suda clenches his fist, his mind racing for an answer that won't kill him. So he hits the floor, bowing deeply and refusing to answer the question. Fafnir panics, realizing that if he tells the truth, he'll be executed on the spot. The Demon King looks down, considering his bold refusal. But Suda's mind is already working, and he offers a proposal instead. He stands and, with a confident smile, challenges the Demon King to a bet. A move so audacious it actually seems to have caught her interest. He reaches out, calling forth his next ridiculous item. A massive, futuristic version of a classic party game materializes. He launches into a sales pitch explaining the rules of this new balance battle. An item inspired by a game show he watched as a kid. He lays out the stakes. If she wins, he'll tell her everything, but if he wins, she gets nothing. The Demon King seems amused by his audacity, asking if he's serious. Fafnir panics, but Suda admits this desperate gamble is his only move. He's banking on her profile, which reveals a deep love for drinking and gambling. The ruler of the demon realm considers his very unusual proposal, and with a confident smile, she agrees to his little game. A slow, amused smile spreads across her face. She bursts into laughter, finding the whole situation hilarious. She muses that it's been a long time since anyone dared to challenge her to a bet, calling him the second to do so. And with a confident smile, she formally accepts his challenge. Suda grins, his desperate gamble having paid off. With the terms set, she declares the game will begin. But she suddenly points, calling Fafnir's name. She declares that Suda won't be playing against her, but against his own captain. She'd much rather watch the chaos unfold with a drink in hand. Fafnir turns on Suda, completely flustered by the sudden turn of events. She declares with fiery resolve that she won't be holding back. Suda can only nervously agree, his life now resting on a party game. The rules are simple. A game of balance where a wrong move means defeat. From her throne, the Demon King calls out the first move with a smirk, and the two are immediately forced into a very awkward position. Fafnir is already struggling, the simple game pushing her to her limit. Suda finds himself in an even more compromising situation. The demon captain's face burns red, her composure quickly fading. As the pressure mounts, the heat in the throne room begins to rise. He's suddenly very aware of his opponent's athletic build, and he realizes this party game has features he never accounted for. She immediately asks what he's staring at, and he frantically denies everything. She tells him to focus on the match, not on the distractions. The Demon King calls out the next move, forcing them into an even more tangled position. She notes with amusement that Fafnir is completely stuck, a fact that seems to be the highlight of the Demon King's evening. Suda asks if this is the true point of the game, but he pushes through the pain and embarrassment with a sudden roar, a display of sheer will that catches the demon captain completely off guard. With a grunt, Suda plants his hand firmly on the mat. He contorts his body into a surprisingly flexible backbend. Fafnir is stunned by his agility, calling it an old family secret. A secret he learned from his part-time job as a yoga instructor, of course. He even launches into a sales pitch for the pose, much to her annoyance. She grits her teeth, realizing she completely underestimated him. The Demon King calls out the next move, putting Fafnir in a tight spot. But the demon captain refuses to be defeated so easily. With a powerful shout, she stretches her body to its absolute limit and looks back with a triumphant smile, declaring she's just getting started. Suda's eyes widen as he realizes the true nature of this game. Fafnir warns him that he's far too close for comfort. He tries to look away, but his view is completely obstructed, a view that is making it very hard for him to concentrate. The demon captain's face burns with a deep, embarrassed blush. From her throne, the Demon King gleefully points out his wandering gaze, a comment that sends Fafnir into a furious, flustered rage. She slams her hand down, trying to regain her focus, but the awkward position is making it difficult to breathe, and Suda finds himself completely pinned beneath her. The demon captain is completely overwhelmed by the close contact. Her face is pressed firmly against Suda's back. The strain of the position is becoming unbearable for her. and she's suddenly very aware of every point of contact. Suda knows that if this continues, his own resolve will break. Fafnir's posture begins to fail under the immense pressure. She squeezes her eyes shut, trying to endure the embarrassment. But the Demon King calls out the next impossible move. Suda panics, desperately looking for any way to survive this. Fafnir calls his name as their precarious balance finally shatters. Fafnir is completely overwhelmed, struggling to keep her composure. Suda can only offer a frantic, panicked apology for the situation. The Demon King calls out the next move, and Fafnir promises him he'll pay for this. But a new rule suddenly flashes across the board: escape to win. Both of them are caught completely off guard by the sudden change. Suda realizes his younger self added a few extra features to make things more interesting, and with a series of clicks, the game board begins to transform. Strange tendrils erupt from the mat, surrounding them completely. The Demon King watches from her throne, thoroughly entertained by the chaos. Suda explains the new rule as they're swarmed, cursing his childhood creativity. The tendrils immediately ensnare Fafnir, wrapping tightly around her. Suda can only watch in horror as she's completely bound. But before he can act, the tendrils turn on him next. He cries out as the strange mechanisms lock him in place. The game then pulls them together, trapping them face to face. She screams at him to get away, but he's just as helpless as she is. The Demon King, however, finds this to be a masterpiece of entertainment. She cheers them on, clearly having the time of her life. Suda knows he has to escape this somehow. But the close proximity to Fafnir is making it impossible to think. But a sudden realization hits him. A way to deal with this. He tells her of a secret technique from his yoga instructor days. And with a serene smile, he enters a state of deep meditation. While Fafnir struggles, Suda seems completely and utterly relaxed. He explains that meditation is the key to finding the universe within. He tells her to simply close her eyes and focus on her breathing. In this state, the past and future cease to exist. All that matters is the present, a concept she clearly doesn't grasp. But she's stunned to see the tendrils around him begin to loosen. With renewed determination, she decides to try it for herself. But the tendrils around her only seem to tighten. She grits her teeth, unable to break free from their grasp. He tells her to follow his lead and meditate her way out, a suggestion that seems to have an immediate effect. She tries to resist, but the sensation is overwhelming. And just like that, she's one with the universe or something. The tendrils seem to react to her newfound calm, and to her surprise, they begin to loosen their grip. Suda looks on, admitting he has no idea how that worked. Fafnir asks if he knew all along that struggling would only make it worse. Fafnir insists it was just a coincidence, a statement that catches Suda completely off guard. She fumes, asking if he was taking pity on her, insisting this was a serious battle on behalf of her king. But Suda just looks back, a quiet realization dawning. He remembers the moment he found his own calm and saw Fafnir struggling helplessly beside him. She was completely trapped, unable to break free on her own. And with a sheepish smile, he admits he just couldn't leave her like that. A simple, honest confession that leaves the demon captain utterly speechless. She calls him something else, a mix of frustration and awe. And with a blush, she offers him her hand. She tells him it's time to get out of here. Suda looks at her hand, a quiet understanding passing between them, and without a word, he takes it. As she leads him from the throne room, the Demon King watches them go. A slow, predatory smile spreads across her face as she calls him an interesting man. Suda can only look back, still reeling from the whole ordeal. Fafnir glances over her shoulder, her expression unreadable, and from her throne, the Demon King laughs, admitting she was thoroughly entertained. As they walk away, a quiet moment hangs between them, and they both realize they're still holding hands. The Demon King just laughs while Fafnir's tail wags in pure embarrassment. She thanks them for the entertainment as they descend the stairs, but Suda turns back, asking about the outcome of their bet. The Demon King just smiles, saying the winner has already been decided. Her secretary, Mepu, explains that the rules changed mid-game. A happening event declared the first to escape the winner, and with that, she officially declares Fafnir the victor. Fafnir immediately protests, arguing that Suda was the one who got them out. But the Demon King holds up a hand, declaring that a bet is a bet. A statement that sends Suda collapsing to the floor. She points a finger at him, ready to collect her winnings, and demands that he finally tell her everything. Suda can only look up, his face a mask of pure terror. He knows that admitting the truth here means certain death. The Demon King watches, her expression unreadable. He thinks of all the struggles he's endured just to survive, and a wave of pure frustration washes over him. He finally snaps, screaming the sage's name in a fit of rage. The Demon King's eyes widen in surprise. She asks him to repeat what he just said, Suda can only look up, completely confused. She grabs him, demanding to know how he knows that name. He stammers that the one who sent him here was his manager, before confirming that it was, in fact, Nostra. A memory surfaces of a game of chess. The Demon King struggles against a formidable opponent. She cries out in frustration, having lost for the 5th time. Her opponent, the sage herself, teases her about her losing streak. The sage, Nostra, had a habit of getting under her skin. The Demon King demands another game, refusing to accept defeat. But Nostra just looks at the board, already several moves ahead. The Demon King, bored of simply playing, suggests a change of pace. A glint of mischief appears in the sage's eyes. She holds up a chess piece, proposing a little wager instead. A suggestion that catches the Demon King completely off guard. Back in the present, the Demon King's entire demeanor shifts. She declares that Nostra is her one and only friend. A revelation that leaves even her own secretary completely stunned. The Demon King notes that since Nostra sent him, and the curse on his neck remains inactive, it means he must be the summoned hero after all. Fafnir can only stare, the pieces finally clicking into place. She remembers the legends of heroes, the sworn enemies of her people. But the Demon King orders her secretary to stand down. Mepu holds a blade to Suda's throat, ready to deliver judgment. A move so fast our boy never even saw it coming. She questions the order, insisting the hero is their fated enemy. But the Demon King clarifies the prophecy. The hero saves the world, not destroys the demons. Mepu is left completely stunned by this revelation. The Demon King explains that humans were the first to attack, twisting the idea of a hero into an enemy of all demons. A heavy silence falls over the throne room, but the Demon King says she has a strong feeling about this. A feeling that Nostra, her one and only friend, would never send someone who meant them harm. Mepu, however, isn't convinced, holding a blade to Suda's throat once more. She grits her teeth, ready to carry out her duty, but at her king's command, she reluctantly backs away. The Demon King offers a casual apology for her subordinate's enthusiasm. She then asks Suda what exactly Nostra said to convince him to come here. He recalls the sage's only instruction: go save the world. The Demon King looks down at him, her expression unreadable. Suda can only listen, the weight of his new title finally sinking in. She explains that a hero is only summoned when a great crisis is near. A crisis that will force a choice between the human and demon worlds. And she asks him what he will do when that time finally comes. She tells him he doesn't have to answer right away, but to return to her when he's finally made his decision. Back in his room, Suda collapses, completely drained. The chaos of the past few days finally catches up to him. Suda decides he's had enough excitement for one day, but he looks up to see Fafnir standing there, her expression troubled. He calls out her name and she flinches at the sound. The demon captain seems completely flustered, unable to meet his gaze. She quickly makes an excuse and rushes back to her room. Suda can only watch as she walks away down the long corridor. He remembers her vow to defeat the hero to protect her world. A quiet moment passes in the grand, empty halls of the castle. Night falls over the demon realm, casting long shadows. And for the first time in a long while, Suda finally gets some rest. But sleep doesn't come easy. His mind still racing with the day's events. The Demon King's final question echoes in his thoughts. He wonders if he can truly save this world, if he can fight against his own kind. Overwhelmed, he realizes that thinking about it won't give him any answers. He gets up, hoping a change of scenery will clear his head. Elsewhere in the castle, on a quiet balcony, Fafnir is also wide awake, lost in her own troubled thoughts. The weight of the truth is clearly visible on her face. She struggles to reconcile the boy she knows with the title of hero. And she finds herself asking the very same question. What is she supposed to do now? She notes that even here, the sky is completely obscured by clouds, but a familiar voice calls her name and she turns in surprise. An awkward silence hangs between them, both unsure of what to say. Suda's mind goes completely blank, his usual confidence gone. He finally stammers out a greeting, breaking the heavy tension. They both trip over their words, a mess of flustered apologies. He explains he couldn't sleep and came out to look at the stars. Fafnir looks up, admitting she's never seen them in her entire life. They both wonder what the stars would even look like from this world. A quiet, peaceful moment passes between the hero and the demon captain. A sudden realization seems to strike them both at the same time. Suda dives into his sketchbook, an idea sparking in his eyes, and summons a sunshine bomber, which looks suspiciously like a regular bomb. Fafnir can only watch as he prepares to throw it. He hurls the strange device into the perpetually overcast sky. A flashback reveals he drew this to stop the rain on a school trip. The item soars through the air, ready to banish the darkness. It transforms mid-flight, becoming a brilliant, smiling sun, and detonates in a massive flash of pure, blinding light. Suda proudly explains that this is no mere toy. It's a miracle that can change the weather itself. Suda watches, a little stunned by his own creation, but Fafnir is left completely speechless by the sight. For the first time in her entire life, the clouds part, revealing a breathtaking celestial display. The demon captain is completely captivated by the sight. She stands there, lost in the beauty of the night sky. But Suda is surprised by her emotional reaction. He admits he's never seen anything quite like it either. And with a gentle smile, he says he's glad he could share it with her. A simple, heartfelt comment that leaves the demon captain completely overwhelmed. A deep blush spreads across her face. She can't bring herself to meet his gaze. But she finally breaks the silence, calling his name. She asks what he intends to do now as the hero. The Demon King's question hangs heavy in the air, a choice between his world and hers. Suda looks away, the weight of it all finally sinking in. But his serious demeanor shatters into a nervous laugh. He admits he has no idea what to do, which only infuriates Fafnir. But his words seem to strike a chord, and her anger fades. But he admits that even with all the uncertainty, one thing is perfectly clear. He thinks of Fafnir, Ugaru, Batty, and all the others he's met. He's never worked so hard for the sake of his customers before, and with a brilliant smile, he declares he could never quit a job this fun. He, a human hero, working in the Demon King's castle, wonders if maybe this is the true path to saving the world. A simple, heartfelt answer that leaves Fafnir completely stunned. She asks what she's supposed to do if he becomes their enemy. Suda just smiles, admitting he doesn't know what the future holds. But Fafnir looks back, her own resolve hardening as she makes a decision. He speaks of a future where humans and demons can finally coexist. A brilliant, heartfelt smile spreads across Fafnir's face. She declares that she wants to see that future with him. And with that, she places her complete and utter trust in Suda. She leans in close, catching him completely by surprise. And for a brief, fleeting moment, their lips finally meet. Fafnir pulls back, her face burning with a deep blush. But Suda is stunned as the choker around his neck shatters into light. He touches his throat, realizing the curse has been broken, a sign of her absolute trust. The demon captain just smiles, her faith in him now unwavering. Suda thinks back to that moment under the stars, and how Fafnir's smile was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. But then why did it all go so wrong? His mind flashes forward to a scene of pure panic as he screams for help. Fafnir is on the ground, her subordinates scrambling to save her. A bloodied weapon clatters to the stone floor. The demon captain is gravely wounded, her life fading fast. From a balcony above, someone screams for them to keep healing her. But her subordinates can only watch in horror, their efforts failing. Fafnir coughs up blood, her strength finally giving out. Suda's mind reels, unable to understand how this happened. He flashes back to that peaceful night under the stars. He tries to calm down a distraught Ugaru, but she's consumed by rage, screaming that a human did this to Fafnir. Her face is a mask of pure, unadulterated fury. Suda tries to get through to her to get some answers, but the wolf girl is lost in her own shock and grief. He grabs her shoulders, demanding to know what happened. He asks her directly, realizing she was there when it all went wrong, and a look of pure terror fills her eyes. She explains that last night, poachers were spotted in the forest again, and to her shock, they were the very same men Fafnir had spared before. In a flashback, Ugaru had wanted to make an example of them, but Fafnir insisted on letting them go, despite Ugaru's warnings. The demon captain seemed to question the point of such mercy. Her mind flashed back to Suda's words, his hope for a better future. But as they turned to leave, one of the poachers pulled a hidden dagger. He lunged at Ugaru from behind, screaming that he wouldn't go down without a fight. The wolf girl could only turn in shock, completely defenseless. But Fafnir shoved her aside, taking the blade meant for her friend. The poacher stares in horror at what he's just done, and Fafnir collapses to the forest floor. Ugaru calls her an idiot for falling for such a simple trick. Fafnir tries to brush it off, claiming it's just a scratch. But a sudden cough proves her injury is far more serious. She stares at her hand, wondering what's happening to her. A wave of pain washes over her as her soldiers rush to help. She stumbles forward, falling into Ugaru's arms. The wolf girl can only ask what's wrong, her voice filled with panic. She looks down at her hands, realizing it's not just blood but poison. And to everyone's horror, one of her horns breaks off and falls to the ground. The poison courses through her life fading with every passing second. Suda can only call out her name, his voice filled with desperation. The healers do everything they can, but nothing seems to be working. Ugaru cries out, unable to believe her friend could be defeated by a simple scratch. Just then, the Demon King arrives, her eyes immediately locking onto the dagger. She demands a full report on what has happened to her captain. A healer explains that while the wound is shallow, Fafnir's magic is draining away. Her body can't handle the strain, and no potion or spell can stop it. The Demon King holds the blade, realizing this is no ordinary weapon. The Demon King explains it's a demon-slaying blade, a cursed weapon that drains the magic of any demon it touches. Suda and Ugaru stare in horror, realizing there may be no way to save her. The Demon King confirms their fears, stating that Fafnir's body is at its limit and can't withstand the curse. The poison continues to spread, her life fading with every passing moment. Her subordinates can only watch and weep, their captain slipping away before their very eyes. Ugaru is consumed by guilt, whispering that this is all her fault. She knows that Fafnir only took the blow to protect her. The wolf girl breaks down completely, crying that her friend is going to die because of her. But Suda screams out in desperation, calling on the power of his sketchbook, and summons a can of gorilla-themed energy drink. Well, desperate times call for desperate beverages. A flashback reveals he drew this item when he was sick as a child, but now his eyes are filled with a desperate resolve. Ugaru demands to know what he thinks he can do with that, and Suda can only admit that he doesn't know. But he remembers that Fafnir was the one who trusted him, and he screams that he will not betray that trust. Batty steps forward, declaring they'll test every item he has. But Ugaru whispers that it's too late for Fafnir. Batty cries out, begging to be allowed to help their captain. Remembering that Fafnir was the only one who ever believed in them, Batty cries out, declaring that they won't give up on their captain either. They rush to Suda's side, ready to help in any way they can. The Demon King watches the scene, her expression unreadable. The scene flashes back to an earlier time, with Fafnir being asked her impression of Suta. Ugaru had called him an interesting human, one she'd gladly play with again. She'd teased Fafnir for not being angry, telling her to separate work and play, but then she'd turned serious, admitting she trusts Fafnir's instincts. And Fafnir had smiled, saying she'd trust her friend's judgment as well. Back in the present, Suda tries to force the strange drink down Fafnir's throat, but she can only murmur in pain, the poison's grip still holding strong. But Fafnir suddenly thrashes, screaming in pure agony. Batty pleads with her to stop, struggling to hold her down. Suda joins in, shocked by her raw, untamed strength. They both realize they can't restrain her on their own. But a voice suddenly cuts through the chaos. Ugaru steps in, grabbing Fafnir and promising to hold her still. She apologizes for her earlier despair, now filled with a new resolve. Her words seem to rally the others, uniting them in their cause. With Fafnir restrained, Suda prepares to summon another item. The Demon King watches on as he calls forth his power once more. A soldier asks if their captain can be saved, but Suda can only admit he doesn't know. The others watch on, noting that while he seems sincere, he's still just a human. But Suda screams out, calling for another item to manifest. His friends can only watch, their faces filled with worry. The Demon King takes command, sending her soldiers to find anyone who can help. Suda frantically searches his sketchbook, desperate for a solution. He's summoned everything he can, littering the floor with useless trinkets. He holds up another failed item, his frustration growing with every passing second. He flips through the pages, searching for anything, any hope at all, until a sudden memory flashes through his mind, a voice from his past calling his name. Batty looks down in horror as the curse spreads. Fafnir's hand begins to blacken and decay before their very eyes. Suda can only watch, a cold sweat running down his face. Her friends cry out, begging her to open her eyes and stay strong. But the dark poison continues to spread across her face. Suda wonders if this is truly the end for the demon captain. He questions what his power is for if he can't save the one who trusted him. He grits his teeth, refusing to believe there's nothing he can do. And with a desperate roar, he screams that he will save Fafnir. Just then, a sudden chime echoes in the tense silence. Suda looks down at his sketchbook, completely confused. The book reveals his merchant level has suddenly jumped to 3 stars. Notifications flood his vision, confirming the sudden, massive level up. He looks up to see a massive crowd of demons gathered before him, and every single one of them is cheering him on, begging him not to give up. Ugaru and Batty look on, just as shocked by the sudden show of support. The Demon King explains that Fafnir's life is returning all thanks to a human. But she notes the irony, the one trying to save her is also a human. And with a brilliant smile, she declares that she's betting on him too. A new notification appears in his book, Condition Met. A new power awakens within his sketchbook. A hidden skill, long dormant, is finally unlocked. A special ability begins to activate, much to Suda's shock. His mind flashes back to Fafnir's words, and his own promise to see that future with her. He grits his teeth, his resolve hardening. A new message appears in his book, a blur of text, that resolves into a single, impossible question: summon Nostra? With no other options left, Suda makes his choice. And with a desperate press, he calls upon the one who started it all. A wave of pure, unadulterated power washes over him.